Hey, my name is Jason Creel and you're watching The Lawn Care Life. Today I want to ask a simple question and give you my thoughts on this. Would you rather have 3 small lawns for $40 each or 1 large property for $120? Same amount of money, different properties. Let's talk about it. Stay tuned. All right, one of the things I love about lawn business is that there are more than one way to be successful. Okay, people do in different branches of the lawn care industry and have success in a lot of different formats, including the type of properties that they're focused on, whether that be, you know, mowing or weed control and fertilization or whatever kind of jobs you want to do. Even if you're doing landscape installations, you know, you can do smaller jobs, larger jobs, that sort of thing. All right, so let's talk about the initial question. 3 small yards for $40 or 1 large yard for $120. I'll go ahead and tell you my answer to the question, and then we'll talk about, is that the answer that should be for everybody? For me, I have typically had more success with 3 small yards for $40 than 1 large yard for $120. Here's the reason. Usually for a smaller company, whether you're mowing or doing the weed control and fertilization, they're just simply more profitable from the sheer time standpoint that you're at the property. So if I'm mowing a lawn that's a $40 lawn, even working by yourself, sometimes you can be in and out in 30 minutes or so. I mean, I think that is realistic in a lot of cases. Where, you know, you think, well, if it's $40, a lawn that's 3 times that size, you know, let's go say it's gonna take you an hour and a half potentially by yourself. Obviously, a lot of you don't work by yourself, but if you did, you're not always able to charge 3 times as much money for one that's 3 times as big, if that makes sense. So let's say you got a 1/4 acre lot that's a $40 yard. If it was a full acre, could you charge $160 because it's 4 times bigger? Well, not necessarily. Sometimes it's hard to get that. And the problem is, when you have a $160 yard, it's an acre, it's hard to really stack up the yards and have a real dense route. Where if you have $40 yards in one particular neighborhood that just so happens to have 700 houses in it, it's fairly reasonable to think, you know what, even if it's my first year, I might can get 8 or 10 yards in this neighborhood, and maybe the next year get 8 or 10, and now I've got 16 to 20, and eventually you begin to build a tight, dense route of $40 yards. And I'm using 40 as a number. It may be, you know, higher or lower in your area, but, you know, I'm thinking just a small yard without many obstacles that you can move quite quickly on. And if you can cut down that drive time between properties, have a real tight, efficient route, I found it can be very profitable for even these small yards. And that's why, to be honest with you, some people I see, and maybe once you're established, you just got plenty to do, then this might make sense. But I see signs sometimes around town, and it'll say on there, lawn care starting at $50, you know, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I'm thinking, what if the yard was so tiny that it literally took you 10 minutes? And there are some of those out there. I actually have a video, a 10-minute lawn, you know, mowing a lawn in 10 minutes, but, you know, I said, well, hey, I won't do it unless it's $50. Well, chances are I wouldn't have got the business, and because you're doing it for less money, in 10 minutes, I'm willing to come less than $50. You know, so I wouldn't set some hard, fast minimum at $50. To me, that's a little bit high for a minimum, because like I said, if I could get 20 yards in the same neighborhood at $40 and I only got 5 at my $50 price, I'd rather have, you know, the 20 at 40. I think most people would. So, you know, you gotta find that balance. Is my price, you want to keep your prices up, obviously, but if I dropped it just a little bit, could I get more business in a particular neighborhood, tighten up my route? So there's a balance there. You have to be able to answer that question, find that sweet spot for your price where you can get the customers and yet stay profitable. Here's the problem I have with big properties. Okay, again, you can't, it's hard to quadruple the price on a quadruple size yard. But let's say that 1 acre property that you weren't able to get $160, but you were able to get 100, you know, or maybe 120 or something like that. Well, sometimes here, what we deal with in the South is when it starts raining and the grass has been fertilized, you have like a Bermuda lawn, something like that, the grass gets so thick that it takes a significant more amount of time in the summertime than it does in the spring or the fall, because it's just simply growing so fast. And if you've got one that's only been cut every 2 weeks, and you know often have to go over the yard 2 times, well, on a little bitty yard, if you've got to slow down your mower or go over it twice, you know, or whatever, if you're bagging, you know, things like that, it's not that big a deal. But on a big yard, if you have to do that, I mean, you're talking about a real time killer, and now you're really becoming less profitable. From a weed control and fertilization standpoint, when you're talking about big yard versus small yard, talking about less chemicals, which is one of your biggest expenses, or fertilizer, and obviously the time to do the property is less, and you're usually able to charge a higher rate per square footage on a small yard than a big yard. But same kind of principle applies on a big yard. Let's just say that it's pretty clean and very few weeds. Well, okay, that's no big deal. You fertilize it, you know, spray for weeds, whatever you're gonna do. But if it's a yard that has a lot of problem weeds that take some time to get rid of, well, now, and possibly a lot more expensive products to use, now on a big property, you're talking about eating up a lot of time, and sometimes it's hard to get, it's hard to be profitable, as profitable on those as is a small property. So what I've tried to do on the bigger properties, you know, I've tried to increase my prices some, you know, and if I don't get it, I don't get it. But on the small properties, I'm willing to stay a little bit lower on my prices because I find them more profitable. The other side of the coin here, and why I don't think this is true for everybody, what I'm describing here with the small price, I think this is mostly if you're a small operation, okay, so it's just you or maybe you and one other person or something, small lawn business, which a lot of people are, then, you know, these are, to me, the small properties are more profitable. For larger companies, and you'll see a lot of companies, the big companies, and they're not necessarily going after the little small properties. What are they going after? Apartment complexes, churches, shopping centers. They want the big properties, but they've got the manpower, they've got the equipment, and they're going after the, sure enough, year-round, big ticket contracts, okay? And that makes sense for them. That is the advantage of a larger property. And when I'm saying larger, to me, that kind of large residential is not that great unless you're able to get them, you know, they're paying a significant amount of money. Some of them want to pay year round. You take care of everything. Those can be great. But a larger commercial account that pays a significant amount of money, the advantage there is you can have several people there on the job. You're not wasting time driving around town from property to property. And that's the downside of having small properties. You really need to have a dense route and have a lot of them to make it worthwhile. To have one $40 yard, drive 15 minutes away and do another $40 yard, that's not as good. You know what I'm saying? The whole principle is how many can you get close together. But on a big apartment complex, you got a lot of people there, they're paying a lot of money, and you can stay there and be working and not wasting man hours driving around. So, you know, like I said, there's more than one ways to do it. You'll see the big companies, they're going after the big accounts, and they're making a lot of money doing those big accounts. I'm not saying all the small ones are the only way to go. I'm saying for most small companies who are out there mowing a lot of residential properties, I find the small ones to be more profitable than the big ones. But obviously you can make money a lot of different ways, and that's one of the great things about the lawn care business. You agree or disagree with advice in this video? Let me hear from you in the comments. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and look forward to talking to you soon. Check out these suggested videos. Thanks.